I'll call the meeting to order at 6:04. If you would join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I trust everybody's staying healthy and well and not going too stir crazy.
The knives are still in the drawer.
That's good. That's good. So we have an agenda before us. We've got an email from Donna wanting to add a discussion about, drawing a blank as to what it was about. Was it tax collections? Accepting cash, that's right. So would we make that, we would do that under number 13, miscellaneous, or do we need another agenda item?
I think 13 miscellaneous should be okay.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Carl, do we need to do executive for personnel for any reason?
No, nothing tonight.
Okay.
Then I'll make a motion. We accept the agenda with that modification under miscellaneous.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. If there's nothing further, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Number 4, consider approving the April 14th, 2020 meeting minutes.
The motion that we approve the April 14th, 2020 meeting minutes with minor grammatical and spelling corrections as presented.
Second.
Okay, I heard a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. And the ayes have it. Number 5, announcements. Elaine, would you like to do announcements?
Announcements for April 21st, 2020. For a list of COVID-19 resources and the latest information on changes to Barrytown operations, services, and events due to COVID-19, visit barrytown.org and click on the first announcement link. Note that no notary services are being provided by the town at this time, either through the clerk's office or the police department. Other notaries may be providing services using remote notary guidelines issued by the Vermont Secretary of State. A list is not available at this time, so you'll need to call individual notaries to find out whether they can help you. Are you planning to do some work on your property that would require a permit? No need to put off applying for that permit. The Planning and Zoning Office encourages you to apply now to avoid a rush and wait situation when we're through the pandemic. Contact Planning and Zoning at 479-2595. Individuals in Barrytown and Barre City have come together as Barre Mutual Aid to match volunteers with people unable to grocery shop, need help with medication pickup, tutoring, or need other essential assistance. This effort is not organized by the town or the city. The group is being supported by the Washington County and Northern Orange County's Regional Response Command Center, also known as WNOCROC. WNOCROC is a coordinated effort of experienced community service organizations, including Capstone Community Action and Downstreet Housing and Community Development, and the Vermont Department of Health. WNOCROC will take requests for assistance, but asks that if a request for help is for just you or your household, that you contact Barre Mutual Aid directly. To request help from Barre Mutual Aid, visit the website barrymutulaid.recovers.org. If you do not have internet, call 802-505-9110.
Thank you, Elaine. I actually had a question about that last announcement. I've seen a couple of things posted on Front Porch Forum about this Barre Mutual Aid group. And actually a couple of people had posted follow-up questions about it. And thank you for emphasizing that it is not a function of either the city or town of Barre. And I'm just curious, you know, this Winnock, Washington in Northern Orange County Regional Response Center, although it's, I don't know, not necessarily a legal entity, at least it's comprised of state agencies and recognized nonprofit organizations. And I think they clearly are a legitimate organization, but I had questions about this Barre Mutual Aid Group. I went to their website and it just seems like just a group of, correct me if I'm wrong, just a group of people who are banding together to try to help their neighbors. Is that pretty much sum it up?
Yes, my understanding that that's accurate. I did contact Winnock to ask them what their affiliation was, because I had heard that perhaps they were offering training to these mutual aid groups, but they're not. They're providing information to hopefully help them provide volunteer help responsibly. The challenge is that there's apparently more need than anyone can really meet. That's why they advise that officials encourage folks to reach out to Barre Mutual Aid, for example, over the Barre directly instead of to the hotline. However, of course, if anyone doesn't feel comfortable doing that, they're welcome to contact Winnock to have the hotline, but they might get channeled to Barre Mutual Aid anyway.
Right. Yeah, initially, when I first saw their posts on Front Porch Forum, my concern was that, you know, this is just a group of well-meaning citizens, but we really have no way of knowing who they are, what their vetting process is, you know, have they had any training so that they're not spreading the virus themselves as they go about town doing their good deeds. And it gives me a little comfort to see that this Winnock is at least has some kind of relationship with them. And of course, another avenue, if people forget the phone number or can't remember Winnock, is you can always call 211 and they will refer you to the appropriate agency. Are there any other announcements?
The 211 line is a little bit, can be swamped too, but if people do have internet, the phone numbers are on the Barrytown website, barrytown.org.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any other announcements? Hearing none, are there any guests either in the room or on the phone for non-agenda items? It looks like there's nobody on the phone.
Oh, well, the reporter is, but.
Oh, Eric is, okay. In the past, his name showed up on my screen when he was on the line, but it's not this time. Okay, if there are no guests, then we will move on to item number 7. So normally at this time of the year, we would be having our volunteer appreciation night where we would invite to the select board meeting the many volunteers that help staff our Barrytown boards and commissions and committees, and a huge group of people that without whom a lot of the work of the town would not get done. And it's very unfortunate that because of this emergency situation that we're in, that we're not able to have that event this year. But that doesn't mean that we appreciate these people any less. But for tonight, rather than read the long list of names, and there are many, considering all of our different boards and committees, we're going to recognize just a few people that are achieving some milestones tonight in their service to the town. In particular, we would like to recognize Charlie Thigerson, who has volunteered on the Barrytown Planning Commission for 35 years. That's quite an obligation, or quite a devotion to the town. After Charlie, we would like to recognize Alan Garso, who has volunteered for the Barrytown Cemetery Commission for 25 years. Alan, I think you'll remember, was the recipient of the Pelkey Citizenship Award last year. Very deserving individual. Following that, we have David Ollis, who has served the Barre Housing Advisory Committee for 20 years. And then we have 3 people that have achieved 10 years of volunteerism in the town. Meeting the 10-year threshold, we have Dan Kelty with the Housing Loan Development Board, Alan Garso again for his work with the bulk trash, and Topper McFawn for volunteering at bulk trash. And then the newbies, they've only been volunteering for 5 years. We have Bob Benoit for the Cemetery Commission, Terry Smith on the Recreation Board, Deborah Pierce on the Planning Commission, Jay Perkins for bulk trash, Merle Miller for bulk trash, and Dwight Harrington for bulk trash. So these people in particular for their longevity, but everybody that volunteers on any board or commission for the town of Barre, we would like to sincerely thank you for your service to the town. A lot of the things that we enjoy here in Barre Town couldn't happen without the work of our many volunteers. Anybody have anything to add to that?
Mr. Chair, if I could just make mention of the ad that was in today's Times Argus,
Yes.
recognizing numerous other volunteers in our community.
Yes, thank you. If you would like to see who the other volunteers are for our various boards and committees, check out today's Times Argus. We did place an ad to identify all of them, not just the ones that were mentioned here tonight. Thank you, Norma.
Paul,
Yes, Tom.
if I may, just want to give a shout out to our volunteers. Like you said, unfortunately, we don't have the ceremony that we normally do to get them out here and meet them face to face, but their contributions to the town is what makes the town. There's so many boards and commissions that our residents serve on, and like we get the benefit of being in the TV and looking really good from week to week, but they do a lot of work behind the scenes and don't get necessarily all the accolades they deserve. So I just want to give them a shout out to them and just recognize what they do bring to the town.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Agree 100%. Except about the looking good on television every week.
Well, I was wondering about that too. I'm sure that Mr. White was only referring to himself.
I'm sure.
All right, if there are no further comments for the item number 7, then we will move on to number 8. Consider approving warnings for the open town meeting and the annual election. Carl, do you want to lead us into that one?
Yes, I'll lead you into that one. Then I'm going to have to turn it over to Donna because there was more news on this afternoon.
Okay.
So at the end of the day on Friday, our recommendation to the select board is that you adopt one warning. That would be the warning for the June 2nd election. And that would be the warning that would be for voting by mail only. And it would include 4 questions. In agenda notes, there's a typo where the word "not" should not be included in there, but there are 4 questions on the open town meeting, a warning that we do need action on. So those 4 questions are moved over to the Australian ballot warning. The reason that we recommend that course of action is that we just don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of May and early June. And rather than take a chance on not being able to hold the open meeting or have it challenged and the results not be valid, we suggest you take the Secretary of State's advice and hold one election by mail only. But as I said, there was news late this afternoon, and I'll let Donna talk to you about that and sort of lead you into a recommendation if you agree with this course of action.
Okay, today I spoke with the Secretary of State's office and have been in touch with them via email as well. They put together a final draft of vote by mail procedure, which is being sent to the governor's office either late tonight or early tomorrow morning. Now, both offices are very much aware of our election timeline and our needs for public notice, education, planning, and implementation. The Secretary of State's office said this afternoon they do not foresee any issue with approval for the vote by mail method. However, it may not occur before Friday. That's not going to be an issue for us because that is not going to impact the Australian ballot with regards to printing. Once the warning is approved, the ballot language is put together, sent to the printer. They have to create a proof. It's sent back to me. I have to okay it. And all of that won't finish up before late Friday afternoon, early Monday morning. So it's not going to impact the ballot whatsoever. But what it does impact is the warning. And the warning needs to be signed tonight. So the Secretary of State's office gave me a recommendation that perhaps the Select Board could approve conditionally the vote by mail warning. And they did give me some language. In essence, what you would be doing is saying, I conditionally approve the vote by mail. And those conditions are that this vote by mail warning will be considered valid unless the Vermont Governor's Office and Secretary of State do not approve the vote by mail procedure. In the event that that happens, then this vote by mail warning would be declared null and void. And in lieu of that null and void, the Select Board would then approve the warning for the traditional open meeting and election of officers by Australian ballot to be held on June 2nd. I know it's a mouthful, and I do have the language for all of that. Unfortunately, I didn't get it until very late, so I was not able to put out to you an email. So is everybody confused?
Just a little. So in the unlikely event that the governor and the Secretary of State did not approve the mail election process, are you saying that we would need to go back to having an open meeting and an election on different dates, or would it still be on just the one date?
It would still be just on the one date and all by ballot.
Okay, so everything would be done on one day, but we would have to have the polling place open as opposed to doing it. But
Would be correct.
okay. Okay. Well, I'm okay with that language, assuming that you can repeat it back. I did have a couple of questions about the warning. Regardless of which version you're looking at, under Article 1, where it says elect all necessary officers for the ensuing term commencing May 13th, shouldn't that be for the term commencing June 2nd?
Yes, June 3rd.
June 3rd, okay. Because they're not going to be retroactive positions back to May 13th.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the only other thing was, it's very minor, but I noticed on most of these, Articles 2 through whatever, they all start with, shall the town, whatever, shall the town authorize this, shall the town authorize that. But then when you get down to Article 31, the format changes a little bit, and it's no longer shall the town, it's to see if the town will do this. Articles 31, 33, and 34.
For the open town meeting and inserted it here.
Okay.
And the open town meeting is discussion.
Okay. I think either one, I'm sure, sounds legal. Whether shall the town or to see if the town will. It just struck me as being not consistent, that's all. Other board members, questions or comments?
I have a question with regards to the concept of a vote by mail. Donna, can you explain to us, is the intent to send ballots to all registered voters? Or is it going to be done as we do now for early and absentee ballot requests? The request would have to be,
Would mean that all active voters on the Barre Town checklist would automatically be sent a ballot, which will include a postage paid return envelope.
But when
And
you say,
that's
I'm sorry,
that the line is presented to the governor.
when you say active members of the checklist, what does that mean, active?
As for those of you who are unfamiliar with checklist proceedings, everybody has a status on the checklist.
Right.
They're either active or something else. And something else could be something like challenged.
Okay.
And challenged, when notice is sent to a voter where we question their eligibility to stay on that voter checklist. So until they resolve that determination, they do not fit into the active category. My plan for those individuals is to send them a postcard notifying them of the election and that they need to address their status issue before receiving a ballot.
so if I could continue for just a minute, under the arrangement that's been listed in this warning, along with this vote by mail provision is a second provision that there would be a drive-through polling place intended to accommodate those with disabilities and same-day voter registration needs.
That is correct.
Is that a recommendation from the Secretary of State's office?
There was concern by many parties with regards to not having a physical polling place and not facilitating those with disabilities or those wanting to vote same day, being treated differently. So to remedy that situation, the drive-through polling area was determined to be satisfactory. And I have given my provisions or outlines to the Secretary of State's office as to how we would facilitate that. That would take place at the DPW garage in a manner similar to what we do for bulk trash. You drive in, you check in, you get your ballot, you go to a holding area where you park, you complete your ballot, you exit, and on the way out, you deposit your ballot into a locked box for safety purposes.
So if you had,
And it
had individual,
accommodates everyone.
so if you had individuals who wanted to vote in person and did not want to vote by mail, would they be able to vote at this
They
point?
would. However, what would happen, Norma, is when they checked in, it would be noted on the entrance checklist that they were mailed a ballot. They would have to pull off to the side in a special holding area, fill out some paperwork that says they didn't return their ballot by mail, they don't want to do this, and they want another ballot to vote now. Once they did that, then we would give them another ballot and they could proceed through the area and vote.
So under the provisions of vote by mail, are we obligated, if we opt for that, to have to send ballots out to all the active voters? Or do we have the option of saying, we are going to maintain our standard of if you want to vote, you have to place a request, phone call, email, whatever, to request a ballot?
No, we do not have to send ballots to all. We can state that they need to request one. The issue with that becomes manning the telephones, staffing, making everything happen in such a short turnaround time. So we have over 6,000 on our checklist, and just a little over 5,700 of them are active voters. I would much rather receive 300 calls from the challenged people who want to change their status, as opposed to receive 5,700 calls from individuals who want to get an early ballot.
I would suggest that if you look at what the voter turnout has been for our annual elections, if we hit 15 to 20%, it's a very good year. So I personally am opposed to mailing ballots to everyone. There's a significant cost associated with that, and it is the potential for fraudulent behavior, I'll call it that, certainly would increase. We have no way of guaranteeing who's filling out these various ballots and who's signing them. But I think that it does not put an undue burden on any voter who wants to vote to place a phone call or an email as they have done before. There doesn't appear to be, in my estimation, a significant barrier to voting, because we do have the availability to vote early and by mail. And there are some folks that I know that want to appear in person. That is very important to them. So if we're going to try to limit people who want to do the drive-through voting, I think that would present problems as well.
We won't try to limit. It'll be there for those that want to come. That's not going to be an issue.
So then the language of learning should not be explicit to accommodate those with disabilities and same-day voter registration needs.
That is the primary reason we are having a physical place for someone to go. As far as the fraudulent issues, it's no different mailing someone out a ballot because they would receive the early ballot packet than we do now. We have no guarantee that once we send that ballot out to Johnny Jones, that Johnny Jones is actually the one who voted it. Anyone in his household could and have Johnny Jones sign it.
I understand, but we don't typically mail out 5,700 ballots.
That is true. The other consider is that we are voting at a very unusual time. And there may be individuals that, due to whatever issues that are going on in their personal life, they're just not aware. People aren't getting out to see notices at stores because of these COVID issues. They don't have the newspaper. They may not have cable TV. So they may not know about this election other than if we send them something.
You could send them a postcard saying that there's an election,
Or a newsletter.
or in the newsletter, or there are ways of notifying people short of sending them a ballot.
I guess I'm inclined, for the most part, to agree with Norma. I mean, sort of, I hadn't thought about the drive-through, I guess, for whatever reason. But I think if we offer the early ballot option and we offer the drive-through, drive-up option, as long as that meets with the legalities we need to meet with for the state and the federal government, then to me, I think that is an appropriate response. I know that we're probably going to have a few extra dollars tied up in trying to create a drive-through or drive-in version versus what we normally do. So that's sort of where I'm leaning at this point.
Okay. Tom or Jack?
Well, Mr. Chair, this has been an issue that's been going on nationally, whether you should vote by ballot or whether go to the polls or whatever. It's not unique just to us. In all my voting life, I've always gone to the polls or gone to the open town meeting. But I think we're in different circumstances, and I think we need to probably play outside the box some. So, and this has been in consulting with both the state, and I'm sure VLCT. I think there was something on the news tonight dealing not with voting, but with late payments on property taxes. There's been a lot of people looking at this, and I think I agree with Mrs. Malone on one thing, that we probably won't get a lot of voters, but some of that could be the mess we're in. Not only just the fact that we got COVID-19 and how things are played out, but also, who knows, this is meeting in June instead of May. We might get less people than we have been getting. But I think to side on the side of safety, and Donna has put a lot of work into this, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, I'm sure. So I don't have a problem with mailing out the ballots. I think one approach probably, along with that secondary, is the best, rather than a lot of confusion, that I have to request a ballot, like I would under normal times if I wanted it. So I don't have a problem with doing the mailing of all the ballots and also doing the temporary drive-through for people that need it and really want to vote. I mean, like I said, I voted in person all my life, but in this particular time, I certainly would appreciate a ballot coming to my house and put it in the mail. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
If I can just, one of the things Jack said is he thought it would affect voter turnout, and it might, but the novelty of drive-up or drive-through voting might entice people. It would be, it certainly would be novel. So I don't know if that might help us get a few extra people that, they realize that they can drive through and fill it out and vote and then drive on with the rest of their day, particularly if we're still under some type of stay-at-home order at that point. Let's hope we are not, but if we are.
Paul?
We could load the bag of trash, maybe.
Yeah, Tom.
With this being a new process, regardless of how we establish and which way we go, I would question, are we going to spend money on doing any kind of like PSA on the radio to educate people, to let them know, regardless if they have to call up and request to get a ballot or if they'll be receiving one in the mail?
We will, and that's part of the plan that I need to come up with, is what kind of public service announcements and education and public awareness are we going to do? As we said, this is a new process for us. So we've got to brainstorm and figure out the best way.
Donna,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if we're going to do a full mail ballot like you're recommending, what would be your target date to have those all out in the mail by?
No later than probably the first full week in May, because it will take about 7 days or so for the ballots to be printed and at least the first round to be delivered, because they'd all also need to be scored. In the interim, the staff would already have the, quote, envelope packets together, along with an instruction sheet that would be included inside the envelope. And we have spoken with the Secretary of State's office, since we use a mail merge to print our envelopes, about putting something on the outside of the envelope as well. Doing our best to make sure that John Q. Public knows that this is not some type of political hype thing, that this is a genuine town ballot. So there, I would anticipate that they would be out in the mail that first full week in May, which is just in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's just about 2 weeks away. So if we were going to do what Norma proposed, and instead of mailing a ballot to all active voters, mail a postcard to all active voters, inviting them to request a ballot, we would need to get those postcards out like post haste.
Yes, I would have to get something together, and I'd go to a printer due to the volume and get those done ASAP so that we could get those out and start receiving requests. We do already have a little over 200 requests, I believe. And that was from online and from people who, at the beginning of the year, had requested for all elections for the entire calendar year.
And do you recall what do we typically see for voter turnout on a normal May election?
As Norma said, usually it's about anywhere from 10 to 14%. This year we do have a select board race, as well as some pretty important charter changes. So, and with everybody being home and not out around town, they may take a little more interest in voting as well. So I was hoping that all of those factors might bump up those participating.
So we might get 1,000 voters.
I would say yes, it's possible.
Okay. So what would be less work for your office to to mail out a full ballot package to all 5,700, or to mail out a postcard to all 5,700 and then have to mail out a ballot package to 1,000?
The full mailing would be less work. When someone calls the office and requests a ballot, we have a special form that we are required to fill out. And then that form has to be data entered onto a special spreadsheet. From that spreadsheet, we create our mail merge document, and that is an ongoing process every single day. I can tell you that during general elections, especially presidential, it is a full-time job for many weeks for my one staff person, because that is the process. People call in, or they go online, make their request. We have to download. We have to keep copies of all of those applications, and they have to be stored in the ballot bags for 90 days after the election.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes, please.
This is a contentious issue, not just myself or in the state, but in this country, because this is being discussed nationwide. And there are already legal challenges that are lining up with regards to this, because it is being perceived as having undue influence on an election outcome, because we will be determining and having influence over voter participation. And I understand that the Secretary of State's office is very interested in having Barrytown do this as a so-called pilot project. However, I would hate to think that we engaged in a pilot project that in turn created some legal ramifications for us because of what I'm seeing at the national level of the challenges dealing with undue influence on voter participation.
Okay. Well, we need to do something tonight. We can't kick it down the road. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jack.
Yes, Jeff.
Donna, what is there 2 parts here or 3 parts to this? I mean, can we do the June 2nd warning, or does that hinge on the whether we mail out the ballots?
You can go ahead and do the June 2nd vote by mail warning if you want. As far as the procedure, whether we do a postcard and tell people that they need to call in to request a ballot, or I mail them all, that could wait until next Tuesday for a decision.
Well, as Mr. Chairman says, we can't kick it down the road forever, so we'll either go yay or nay and see where it goes. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the Town of Barre warning for annual election of officers and voting by Australian ballot for the June 2nd, 2020 elections with, I believe, the Article 1 date change. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there was nothing else, so that's my motion.
Jack, how about if you amend that motion?
Oh, I got to amend it already, I guess.
Say that you conditionally approve that vote by mail warning, and the conditions are that if the governor does not sign off on the vote by mail procedures, then this warning becomes, the vote by mail warning becomes null and void, and you thus therefore approve the regular voting by Australian ballot of the town traditional meeting and the annual election of officers.
With the same date change under Article 1.
Correct, with the amendment
With Article 1, yeah.
as stated.
If that's what the legal procedure is, I'm fine to make that and see where it goes.
And so the motion, as I understand it, is simply to approve the warning conditionally, but it makes no mention about whether it's an entire election by mail or whether we do a traditional absentee, correct?
Correct. The procedures on how to conduct that vote by mail are not laid out in this warning.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I might ask, so when will we need to decide on these procedures? It sounded like Mr. Mitchell was inclined to say, let's take care of all of that this evening. So are we going to have 2 separate decisions being made here? One on the ballot, the warning as it's presented as with conditional approval, and then we'll discuss the procedures afterwards. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that would be best, yes. And so this warning, conditional warning, would be relevant regardless of whether we do a full election by mail or whether we do traditional absentee voting.
We're all in agreement on that then?
Yeah, that was my feelings on it.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion on the motion before we vote? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And the ayes have it. I don't personally see any benefit to waiting a week to making a decision about the method unless there's some new information likely to come out in the coming week. What is everyone's?
Any new information coming out in the next week. It's just the preference. If you would prefer the postcard, that's fine. We'll get on it right away and get that out and get those things rolling, because we're not gonna have the ballots, like I said, before the end of the month.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we authorize the disbursement of postcards to all our active voters to notify them of these voting procedures. It'd be vote by mail, that they would have to request the ballot. And also notifying them of the change in the date of the election. And if I might ask a question, so Donna, the governor's office will be making a decision on this conditional approval piece when?
Sometime this week. I did get a copy of what was being sent to the governor late today. It's very basic and broad and flexible with regards to vote by mail. And like I said, the Secretary of State's office anticipates that it should go through with no issue, because it seems to address all of the issues that there were concerns with at their earlier meeting.
I would just want to, I mentioned that because I just would want to make sure that we're not preempting a decision that might warrant our not sending out those postcards, if we were to do postcards.
Nope, there's nothing that should prevent that.
So, on that point, is it possible that the decision that comes from the governor's office and the Secretary of State's office is that it prescribes how a election by mail will be done, and they might say that everybody will mail a ballot to every registered voter? It's not in the works?
That's not to say that they will mail. It's you have a vote by mail. A town is given the authority to vote by mail. What those particulars of vote by mail will depend upon the municipality.
And was there any mention of the state reimbursing for mailing a ballot to every?
For local elections, there will be no reimbursement for postage. It will be on the back of the local municipality.
But if this continues on to the state primary in August, then the state might reimburse for postage for mailing a ballot out.
My understanding that the state is looking into a postage permit, and since the state produces the envelopes, they would provide the envelopes with that postage permit on it, so that the towns would not have to bear the cost of postage when it comes to primary or federal elections.
So the motion on the floor is to authorize or direct the mailing of postcards informing the registered voters of the change of date of the election and instructing them how to obtain an absentee ballot if they wish to vote. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Second.
Okay, Bob Nelson second.
okay. This is Jack again.
Yes, Jack.
I don't agree with that, but under these extraordinary circumstances, I will support it, but I don't agree. I think we should do the mailing the ballots to everybody, but I want us to have an election, I want us to have a budget, and I want us to have our charter change approved. So I will vote yes, but I think the town clerk has put a lot of time and energy into this, and I think she knows probably the ins and outs of elections a lot more than the rest of us. So I would certainly would support her position, but I want to see this thing get done. It's extraordinary times, so move ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Other discussion?
Just a quick note, Mr. Chair. I will, once I get the draft of the postcard prepared, I will forward it to the select board and ask for some final input, just so you're aware of what will be put out there to John Q. Public.
Okay, thank you. Tom, were you going to say something?
No, I agree with some of Jack's statements about unique times, having a vote, getting stuff passed, and going about this route.
If I may, Paul, just quickly, I'm cognizant of the fact that it puts more work on Donna's team, and I apologize for that. But I feel that just mailing out the ballots willy-nilly is a bad term, but just doing a bulk mailing of ballots, I think opens up some issues that I'm don't think I'm prepared to try to deal with. I would much rather have the folks that request them individually do that. And I apologize that that's extra work for you and your team, Donna.
As long as we get what we need and everybody is afforded the opportunity, that's the most important thing.
Donna, let me ask you a question. Do you feel, as the elected town clerk and the presiding officer, do you feel that by taking this action, the board is overstepping by telling you how to conduct your election?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion before I call the question?
That was a good question, Paul. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Which moves us to number 9, discuss participating in the state's proposal for pooling local revolving loan funds.
Eric Blaisdell.
Has left.
Goodbye, Eric. Number 9. So just to bring folks at home up to speed, there has been a Barre revolving loan fund for I don't know how many years. Carl would have to answer that for us, but the state has come up with an idea of pooling various local revolving loan funds from around the state to create one business RLF, revolving loan fund. There recently was a conference call on the subject, which was attended on behalf of the town by Chris Violet. And we have some communication from the state and from Barre Area Development on the matter. Carl, is there any other information that we need to know other than what was in our packet?
Well, I advised you in your packet that Joel Schwartz started asking on Friday about the town not participating in the statewide pool, but instead sort of doing something very similar with our Barre Business Revolving Loan Fund and making our own relief and recovery type of loans. And since then, he has exchanged emails with Ted Brady, the Deputy Secretary at the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And Mr. Brady is the person that seems to be spearheading this for the state. But I have not seen anything specific as a proposal from Joel Schwartz on this, as I asked him to try to get something so that if the select board had questions about how a local loan program might work, I could share that information with you, but I don't have anything specific from him except that he looked at what the state has put together so far and felt that was a good idea, we could do something similar.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. I noticed on the draft document that I think came from ACCD, it lists what these grant proceeds could be used for, and it seems like they're all intended for helping businesses recover from this current coronavirus situation. But what about uses of that money that would have been, that we would have approved previously under the existing revolving loan fund? Would those uses be no longer eligible?
Well,
And that-
as I understand it, if a business was making application for one of these coronavirus relief loans and grant and loan, then the eligible expenses or reasons for the loan would have to be as shown on this document or whatever comes out after it. If they were seeking a loan for other reasons, for instance, that they were looking at an expansion but needed capital to help with purchase of equipment, then that, I think, should be just viewed as an application in the regular process.
Right, but the money that would be used to make a loan for that regular process, if we give all of our revolving loan funds over to the state, there would be no money left to award for that, for like an expansion, something non-related to COVID-19, if I'm reading it right.
Well, that depends on what you decide to do for participation. So there's a couple of ways you could say no, you don't want to participate. You could say yes, and you could just turn over all the money we have, or you could say yes, so participate and hold back, say, $40,000 in case there is a new traditional business loan application that comes in.
Okay. My second question is on this draft document under loan underwriting. The third bullet point says that the applicant must not have been delinquent on any taxes, fees, or payments to the state. But what about delinquency to a municipality?
Well, that's a suggestion that could be given to the agency. And that typically is a condition if the town were applying for a grant and was awarded a grant to make a loan, that usually is one of the conditions that the subrecipient must be current on all their taxes, state and local.
Okay. And I guess sort of carrying on with my first point is, eventually we'll reach an end, hopefully, reach a new sense of normalcy. And assuming that there is still money left in this new pooled statewide loan fund that has not been awarded to somebody needing post-COVID help, what happens to those funds? Is the Barre revolving loan fund done forever, or would those funds come back to us, or would they remain in the state pool? And I'm not expecting you'll have the answers to this, but these are just the questions that I had after reading through this packet of paperwork. And then the last thing is, I noticed that the state, if this happens, the state is planning to contract with a third-party loan processor. And I'm just wondering how much of these revolving loan funds are going to be eaten up by the administrative costs of the loan processor. Those were my concerns. Other board members, comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Jack, I'd like to hear from Mr. Nelson, since he's in business and been involved with the partnership and the VAD. I mean, what do you think of this idea, Mr. Nelson?
There's a lot of businesses out there that are they're devastated by what's going on right now, and frankly, as much money as the governments have put out there, there is not enough. Having said that, my concern is that somebody who is in Barre Town or Barre City or a neighboring community, that $5,000 could make the difference between staying in business and going out of business, might not get that money because a business, let's say in Chittenden County, got those proceeds instead. Maybe because the business in Chittenden County has somebody that specifically is able to take care of this, so that a single proprietor in a smaller town is going to have to work all day and then try to figure out a way to apply for this money. So I am going to be no help here, Jack, and because I'm torn completely. As much as I would like all of this money to go to help businesses survive right now, I'm hesitant to throw it all into a statewide kitty, because there is going to be someone that is left out, because whether it's 10 million or 92,000, it's not enough to help the businesses that need it. So I'm concerned that the businesses, the local businesses that this money's made, that the Barre Revolving Loan Fund was designed to utilize for, is those people may go without. And so I'm torn. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked Mr. Nelson, because I like the concept, because there's not going to be probably enough money can be printed that's going to help everybody.
You're correct.
I kind of like the idea of the regional, but my other thing is like you know, what about Central Vermont? I mean, should we take care of ourselves? And so I was wondering, I have a question for Carl. I mean, is this...
First, on that point, if you look at the summary from Chris Violet,
we can reject. Is that what you're talking about?
the 5th bullet says applications would be regional based on our geographic location, hoping that we use the money to help businesses from other towns because they will likely have some impact on our town. And then the 13th item, about halfway down the list, says towns would have veto authority, but they'd like towns to be liberal and hope that they only deny for good cause. And somewhere else in here, I've read that the intent is to try to use the money locally, and that the regular process for approval would continue. That might be at the end of Mr. Brady's draft.
Well, it says the receiving loan fund has the right to accept or reject an application.
Yes.
Approved application will be forwarded to the geographically appropriate fund for consideration. So, I guess I was going to ask, is this something that it might be better to put off? I mean, since it's kind of like a moving target, could we, if we get any more information or a little clarity, if we had this like next week, or is it like it needs to be done now?
I don't know that it needs to be done now. I just was reacting to what I read, that they are hoping to move fast on this, and that the draft of the MOU might have been issued even by the end of that day, which was last Thursday. And I take it that what we've got received now as labeled draft is intended to be the MOU, just doesn't have signature lines on it. So they are moving quickly. nothing's been said that there's a cutoff date for giving a yes, no on whether a town will participate. So if you want to list your questions, we can go back to the state and ask them what their thoughts are about those conditions in your questions.
I saw those notes about regionality, Carl, and then I saw that it said that it would be overseen by a group of people throughout the state. And I guess comprised of members of the VCLF, Community Capital, DED, VITA, and members of nonprofit and municipal loan funds. I'm just wondering, you know, if that one little voice that Barre Town will have would be enough. But if there, so I'm wondering if there will be different regions, like a Washington County group of people that are deciding on making the loans. I guess I do have some more questions about that. To my look, you're looking at a lot of people who may not have the town of Barre's best interests at heart, potentially distributing the money.
So my take on that was that that group would be making a recommendation, same as what VCLF does for us now. You may remember that the select board makes the final decision about the loan. So I think it was maybe about a year ago that you received the recommendation about making a loan to the sausage company located in downtown Barre. Can the select board approve that? Because the select board approved the loan to Old Route 2 Spirits a couple of years ago. So, but the recommending committee, I don't know if it's a regional-based group, or if it's statewide.
Okay. That alleviates some of my concerns for certain.
Paul?
Tom, are you getting ready to say something?
Yeah, I might have missed it in the notes or the draft form we have, but I didn't happen to locate anything saying that it would alleviate the town of its responsibilities for reporting and record keeping on these loans when they're given out, like we're currently required to do. Did anybody see anything speaking to that?
Something in Chris Violet's summary about possibly, it's not quite halfway down the list. It says the agency will loosen strings that may be attached to closeout agreements or other restrictions for use of the funds. But I guess that doesn't really answer your question there, so that we still would have that responsibility of annually reporting the status of the loans made with the revolving loan fund money, which came from community development block grants.
Yeah, because I thought we had to report like payments on it and not just the end of the year. So if this goes out and about throughout the state, then that's going to put even more on the town. And if we have the ability to take this revolving loan fund and modify it anyways and share with our neighbors and do everything that this is talking about doing, but if we're still gonna have to manage it locally, I'm not sure why we'd wanna jump in with this statewide program. And I'm just always hesitant when something gets thrown together quickly, that's complicated, about just causing more problems than it's actually solving.
Something, if we did it locally, like if Joel Schwartz spearheaded doing it just for the Barre Business Revolving Loan Fund, then he would have to do this quickly if it's going to help the businesses, because maybe Bob Nelson can speak to this, but it would seem to me that making loans in July and August might not be really helpful for the businesses that need the money in the next couple of weeks. Would you agree, Bob, or is there still?
Yes. No, I agree 100%. I will also say that the Small Business Administration sent out an email today to, I guess, everybody in the world or whatever, but those that have gotten EIDL loans or the Payroll Protection Program loans, when they signed up, there was a assumption amongst the lenders of how it would be implemented. The assumptions were wrong. And the SBA came out today with a list of things that many businesses are not going to be able to do, just based on, you know, for instance, when you have people who don't want to come to work, they count against you having been laying them off. It's counted as you being laid off. But the businesses didn't know that until after the money had already been dispersed to them. So my point is that whether we try to do this on our own or we put the money into the statewide fund, we need to make sure that what the expectations is for the businesses that take the loan. We don't want to say, oh, we missed something 2 weeks afterwards or a month afterwards and say, oh, here's an additional hoop we forgot to tell you about. That's my point.
Norma, did you have any comments?
Just a couple comments. I don't think that I'm inclined to make any quick decisions on this because this seems like it's being pulled together very quickly. I share the concerns about there's a lot of details that need to be ironed out on this. What they've provided for us here is if I'm reading this right, it's a draft outline of the program. And they talk about developing an MOU. I would certainly want to see what the MOU looks like before we even consider moving these monies in that direction. I think there's still a lot of details that need to be fleshed out on the state level for this. And you know, it may be that the monies can be kept on a regional basis, but I can't make a decision based on very partial information at best right now. So I would suggest that we just wait on this and we see if, you know, Chris can access that MOU if they've actually completed that and get some more information.
Okay, I was trying to, I'm not sure if I read it somewhere or if I just heard Carl's comments about this draft document from ACCD. Sounded like, Carl, you thought that this was what they intended to be, the basic outline of the MOU just needs to be put in the format of a legal document. Did I understand that right?
I don't know that for sure. I'm just wondering if this was intended to be that draft of an MOU, since it did come out either on Thursday afternoon or Friday.
Well, the email from Ted, the second sentence says, I've attached a draft outline of the program. And later on says that they're developing an MOU that participating loan funds, ACCD, and a loan processor could enter into. So this may be the framework, this may be the bones, but I want to see the meat on the bones of how this is actually going to function and what that means to our municipality before giving them a yay or a nay.
Right, agreed. Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate the urgency that this needs to take in order to get help where it needs to go in time to prevent businesses from going under. However, I also, I'm not confident that kicking this whole program up to the state and letting the state manage it and let them appoint a third-party loan processor is necessarily going to make it quicker and more efficient than what we currently have with our local revolving loan fund. So I guess if there's some action that we need to take to indicate to ACCD that we have interest, I mean, I think it's safe to say that we're not ruling it out, but we'd like to know a little more detail about how it would work, and the quicker the better.
Paul, I agree with you on that. I might also suggest that we have BADC look into drafting something locally. Sometimes it's easier to turn the directions of a small ship than a big ship. So to Carl's point earlier and Bob's about help coming sooner versus later.
Okay. So we all in general agreement on where we're headed?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
And Carl, do you have enough information?
Yeah, I'll get back to Joel and ask him to prepare a local program, including checking with the state to see if it's going to be acceptable as, you know, for the modified use of that grant program income. And we will keep collecting information from the state and maybe even asking them if they've got something ready so that when we send out the packet this coming Friday, we have up-to-date information for you.
Yep, that would be good. Thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion on this matter, we will move on to number 10, which is to consider awarding contracts, first for roadside mowing. We sent out, well, let me get this straight before I say it. For roadside mowing, we contacted 5 possible bidders and only received 1 bid back, which coincidentally is the same person who has done our roadside mowing for a number of years. And the one and only bid was from Donnell Dexter of Williamstown, who bid $7,600 for the year, for 2 years, with an hourly rate for extra mowing at $75 an hour. And it should be noted that his bid this year is up only $200 from last year. And the town has been happy with Mr. Dexter's work in the past. Is there a motion on this matter?
I move that we award the 2-year roadside mowing contract to Donnell Dexter at the price of $7,600 per year and $75 per hour for extra mowing.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. And the ayes have it. Item 10B is to award, this is a 1-year contract, if I remember right, for trash and recyclable removals from town facilities.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we award a 1-year trash and recyclables removal contract beginning May 1st, 2020 to Myers Waste and Recycle based on their per pick up bid amounts.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have one quick one, Mr. Chair. This is
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Carl, do you assume Casella probably just didn't want it because it's an awful different price?
Yeah, and they know what they know what Myers' bid was last year. And I think Casella actually bid a little bit higher this year than they did last year, so I guess they don't need it, and if they could get it at that higher amount, good. But
Fine. Yep. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Carl, I know, so this is for trash and recyclable pickup at 5 different town facilities. And did we send out, so was this processed as like 5 different bids for the 5 different buildings?
so it's 1 bid for all 5.
Okay.
And if the bids were closer, like if Casella was low for one facility, they were tight on others, then we would have to do the arithmetic to add up the 5 up to see who was the lower, but in this case, there's such a difference. You can see that Myers is the low bidder for every site. We would know that Myers is the low bid.
Right. Okay. Just seeing it broken out the way it is in our notes here, I was hoping that we wouldn't, like you said, in this case, Myers is the low bid in every location, but I would hate to see it get to the point where we had like Casella picking up at the EMS station and Myers at DPW and Casella at the municipal building. And it would just seem like it'd be an administrative nightmare. So I'm glad to see that's not the case. If there is no further discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor of awarding the 1-year contract to Myers Container, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it. That brings us to number 11, report on coronavirus 19 measures.
I'd have another report for you, some updates. First of all, the governor's addendum titled Work Smart, Stay Safe, issued last Friday was welcome news. Our workforce remains in good shape. There are no COVID cases among our staff. The work from home arrangements continue to work okay for us. That's for the staff here in the office. Our office is busy, however, as we would expect for the month of April. There's just so many things going on in April and then in May, and people are getting out and about, and maybe this year even more than usual. So there are a lot of phone calls and still some people walking up to the door. Regarding supplies here at the building for the cleaning and disinfecting and so on, we have a good stock of that material. The police chief reports that he's in good shape with supplies. He has masks, face shields, hand sanitizer, and cleaning and disinfecting supplies. DPW also is good, but they're waiting to receive the face shields that they've ordered. Then EMS, the director says that they're in good shape. They do have gowns, but they're not the preferred style of gown that they would like to wear. And he tends to have to order those a lot because he just receives a few at a time. Regarding events and services, we've learned that Rock Fire in the month of June is canceled for this year. Public Works is reporting, Public Works and police and EMS are reporting no public issues, like they're not encountering any problems out in the public, whether it's the congregating of people or people not getting along. The EMS director did ask me to remind everyone to continue to be diligent. We're not down off the mountain yet, and we're not out of the woods yet. And he's concerned. He does not want to see a rebound, so he doesn't want people to get complacent and start getting lax on the precautions too soon. On another note, not related to COVID, but coming from the department heads, the police chief said you might want to check the Channel 5 news tonight or check their website. Today they came and did a piece about the new Barrytown canine. On other matters, our EMS service was asked and plans to help the state with testing. Barrytown EMS was one of 10 EMS services in the state asked to participate. Chris Lamondis reports to me that Barrytown was chosen because of our resources and for geographic reasons. The town would be compensated for sending a couple of EMTs to work at a testing site. And we are thinking that this might be something the state is looking ahead to, that it's not necessarily something that they want to do, say, next week. The town clerk reported to me today that we received the ambulance stimulus money that was mentioned last week, and it turns out to be $55,900, not the $35,000 to $40,000 that we were thinking. That money came from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The Cemetery Commission meets by telephone tomorrow evening. They have a COVID policy on their agenda. It is part work rules for the employees, basically putting into local policy the Work Smart, Stay Safe protocols. And it's part commission policy on conducting cemetery business with the public and the funeral directors. And we think that we'll have some summer staff start work next Monday. DPW activities under the Work Smart, Stay Safe protocols. No more than 2 people working together. And as we had started before the state's Work Smart, Stay Safe addendum, we're keeping the guys in as partners so that they're working with the same person each day. So they have been performing this week so far lawn repairs after winter plowing. Yesterday, 2 guys finished installing the MXUs, those remote water readers. And today that crew started exercising water valves. And we've had 1 man down at the gravel pit screening gravel. There are a couple of guys off right now, and when they return, we'll get the sewer line flushing crew out. And Josh also reported that he thinks that that after the exercising of the water valves, he'll have them get the pavement saw out and cut pavement where we know we need to do culvert work. And also another item on the list is checking the manholes in the roads to be paved to see what manholes need to be repaired. Last week, a couple of us here in the office attended a couple of different meetings or briefings by Zoom or telephone. As you know, we've already talked about Chris Violet attending the meeting about the loan pool. Elaine sat in or listened in on one regarding workers' comp claims and COVID claims. And I listened in on the briefing for public assistance applications to FEMA, and then on Friday afternoon, the weekly emergency management director's briefing. And since last week, I haven't seen or heard of anything, any new large expenses coming in. You may have noticed on the warrant tonight, some expenses, but those were items that were purchased several weeks ago, some of them even back in March. So those were included in those estimates I gave you before of our expenses might be in the $1,000 to $1,500 range so far. And also with the governor's addendum last week, removes any doubt about us doing the assessing and reappraisal work. That was one of the items I had on the agenda for tonight's meeting until we got news of that addendum from the governor's office. And so that addendum eliminated the need for you to talk about the reappraisal. So the assessor's office is moving ahead with their plans to mail out postcards to the property owners in Area 3. And I expect that early this week, those cards will be going out. That's all that I have prepared for reporting tonight. I'll try to answer questions if anyone has a question.
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go
Carl,
ahead, Jack.
last week you mentioned something about Public Works that we're gonna have to reshuffle bodies or something. Is that not happening now? We don't need to?
Well, before, middle of last week, there was a revision in the guidance from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development that said no road crew should be working except for dealing with something that was an imminent public safety threat to motorists.
Right.
So, and the way that was written, we were going to have to basically shut down the Public Works Department except for the water and sewer system operator.
Sure.
And the mechanics, because they were serving the emergency vehicles. But the addendum negated that
Okay.
guidance from ACCD.
Okay. And, so they can work just like we were planning, right?
Basically, they can work like we were planning. The addendum is more stringent than what we had in regard to the cleaning, where we said they had to do things at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. The state's order says even in the middle of the day, now they have to wipe down their truck and any tools that they're using. But however, the state says that two people can ride in a vehicle together, and we're saying you don't do that. You each drive a separate vehicle to the work site. So, and otherwise, it was very, very similar to what we were doing.
And, somewhere I read, they included street sweeping in that. I think you told us that the 27th they're supposed to start street sweeping. Is that still going to be able to?
Now we have to call the contractor again. So when we got that new guidance from ACCD last week, we called the contractor and told him he could not come to start sweeping on the 27th. Now we have to call him back and tell him he can.
And my last thing is, you talked about cutting the pavement for our projects. You're talking about actually removing the pavement?
No, we're talking about using the pavement saw to
Right.
cut the pavement so that, but then when they're ready to do the culvert replacement, it's already cut and they can just lift it out.
Right, but I'm wondering about the timeline, because, that's going to be an open cut, and it's going to become full of holes, and it's going to be...
No, we're not talking about taking the pavement out, we're just talking about saw cutting the pavement.
Oh, you're just going to cut it and not take, okay. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Other board members?
Yeah, I've got one, Paul, before we jump off.
Yeah,
I just
go
wanted
ahead,
to
Tom.
explain. I must be missing it, but where on the town website's the link to the Barre Area Partnership listing all the businesses that are still open?
So I searched around, Barre Partnership and BADC, and I couldn't find something clean. Emailed both of them. Barre Partnership said that they had basically it was a post, and I asked if she would be willing to pin it to the top, because it's hard to find in there, and I was assuming that the list would not be static, it would change over time, and then I would have to keep track of that and update the link. She hasn't responded.
How long ago did you talk to her? Because as we've discussed, trying to get help out to local businesses is a timely thing, and this has been going on almost a month now since we've started this conversation.
Well, you had pointed out getting the list up there of who's currently open on last Tuesday. I asked her on Wednesday, and she hasn't gotten back.
No, I started this conversation back on March 26th. I can look, see if I can find a link, because I think having something out there would be beneficial versus having nothing out there. But I did see that you updated it with our announcements one, so that was great to see that out there. Just more information we have to help people is good.
Okay. And Elaine, is the boards and committees that are meeting remotely, are they using Zoom, or are they just using the conference line, or what are they using?
Committees are able to use Zoom if they want to. The conference line is for public.
Okay. So like, for example, you mentioned that there was a cemetery commission meeting tomorrow night. How are they meeting?
We're arranging for that to be just by phone conference.
Okay. And the rec board, are they doing Zoom?
The rec board's using Zoom.
I'm just thinking, you know, typically we don't go to all these meetings, but I'm thinking if I'm sitting around the house with nothing to do and I know that there's a rec board meeting or a cemetery commission meeting that I can call into and just be a fly on the wall, I might do that. Would they be using the same Zoom conference number that we use?
No, because of the private or the security concerns, for each board will have their own unique ID. So,
Okay.
but you know, obviously, if there's another board commission member, we could share that one so that they could watch if they wanted to.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anything else COVID related? If not, we'll move on to number 12. And number 12 is to consider approving the weekly accounts payable warrants for April 21st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the weekly account payable warrants for April 21st. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it.
I'm going to recuse myself, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. One recusal. Okay, number 13, miscellaneous. I see we have one liquor license request, and then of course Donna's discussion about cash handling in the town office.
Motion that we approve a second-class license for Ricky's Shell and Deli Incorporated, doing business as Great Energy Store.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of issuing the second-class liquor license, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And the ayes have it. So, Donna, your requests regarding cash payments.
Yes, with May 15th still being under the governor's stay-at-home order, my staff and I had begun discussions on how we were going to handle the collection of taxes. And we have a tendency to have quite a bit of cash come in over the counter during the time that we collect taxes, maybe a 3 or 4 day period. And our concern was that all reports state that the coronavirus can stay on cash from anywhere to from a few minutes to 48 hours or 2 days. And if we were to take cash, that would mean not only would the staff possibly be exposed to the virus, but if we turn around and give that money to someone else as change, they too could be exposed, and then again the chain leads on and on. So many town clerk's offices around the state are just saying, for now, let's just not accept cash, because there are so many alternative ways to pay. And we do have a lot of alternative ways to pay. I've been doing some research with some of the local businesses and banks and facilities that many of our taxpayers use. And for those individuals who do pay by cash, many of the banks are offering bank checks or money orders at no charge if they're going to be paying property taxes to the town, which I thought was a very, very nice thing to do. Other entities, such as Hannaford's Market, they do provide money orders, but there is a fee associated with it. It's $500. If you get a $500 money order or check, it's a $1 fee. If it's over $500, then there's an additional $1 charge. So it would be $2 for a money order. Basically, we would like the select board's blessing in saying, town clerk's office is not going to accept any more cash through May 20th, 2020. And the reason I chose that date is that in the event that the governor extends the stay-at-home order and we still have all of the bans with regards to social distancing, then this would allow the select board an opportunity, if we feel that it's necessary, to extend the not accepting of cash. I'm just considering this a temporary measure, and I don't feel at this time that we're going to have to extend that. But in order to keep everyone safe, not only staff and the general public, I'm asking for the select board's blessing in not accepting cash for payment of property taxes through May 20th, 2020.
Okay. And do you need any formal action from us, or just a consensus that we give it our blessing?
I think a consensus is fine. VLC did not recommend, they just said we should get the blessing of the select board.
Board members, anybody have any issue with what's being proposed by the clerk treasurer?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any issue, but if we're not going to take formal action, at least it should be highlighted very heavily in the minutes that we, by consensus, we agreed that under the special circumstances, we will not accept cash for the May 15th tax payment due. And that we are providing, somewhere I see here, we are providing some options for the customers and not just say they can't bring their cash here.
Jack, there will be notices placed around town, including a couple new places. It will be on our website. I intend to put an ad out in the Times Argus, because we normally warn for property tax anyway. And I am aware that Barre City's not accepting cash either.
Right.
So people are probably more familiar with this concept than not.
That's all I had.
Okay. Any further discussion on that matter?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just for
Yep.
clarification, what's the difference between accepting cash being paper and accepting checks that are paper?
Well, first of all, the majority of checks that we receive, Tom, are through the mail. And given the mail service, it's going to be 2 or 3 days once you drop it in the box before I get it. So by then, most of the virus would be dead. Also, those putting in the drop box and that, there is some tendency there. But we do have some gloves in the office that we will be using to help us with the processing of paper checks that come in on that day that haven't come through the U.S. Postal Service. As far as what we receive from UPS and those places, again, most are 2 to 3 day deliveries. So we feel pretty confident that the contents of those packages, any virus on there will be almost dissipated, if not gone.
And if you didn't say this already, with a check, generally speaking, the only person who has touched that check is the person who wrote it, whereas with cash, who knows how many pockets it's been in and out of over the last couple of days. So.
The dirtiest thing you'll ever touch.
Right. And yet you'll see people standing in line in the grocery store, putting it in their mouth
Ah,
while
not me.
while they fumble with their coupons.
So could I just ask a quick question pertaining to cash? Are you receiving any cash now, or have you received any cash in the last month for any payments?
We most certainly have. We've had people knocking at the door wanting to give us hundreds of dollars for their tax payment in cash. I will do my best to try to facilitate if we do happen to get those very few people. We are working on a process whereby we can provide them with an envelope. They can put the money in the envelope. Through the door, we can kind of see how much is there and give them change if we have to using an envelope, and do our best to put that cash aside for a couple days to let any possible virus dissipate.
Okay, because I think that you should have some provisions in place in the event that folks haven't seen or heard any announcements and they show up with cash.
And that's what we are doing.
Just so I'm clear, Donna, you're asking that all cash payments be stopped at this point? Because I thought originally it was just the property tax we were discussing, but your recommendation is to stop all cash payments at this point?
Immediately through,
Okay.
yes.
Good.
And in all honesty, the last 2 days, we have not received any cash whatsoever.
I know there are many businesses that are accepting only credit cards or checks at this point, so.
Yeah, and go ahead, Norma.
I wouldn't want to see anybody punished because they came to pay for their taxes and they had cash. They have cash and they came late in the day, and all of a sudden there's they have to go get a check. They could potentially be facing a late charge.
We do have a method in place that if we absolutely have to, we will accept that cash.
We need some legal way of money laundering. I would just put in a plug for the automatic, what do you call it, ACH payments. I mean, I know not everybody is in a position to be able to do that, but I can't say enough about the simplicity and the ease of it. I don't know how many years ago it was that I signed up for it, and I'm always shocked when I see how few townspeople take advantage of that option. No fee involved. It comes right out of your account. The only thing you have to do is make sure the money's in the account, which I understand is sometimes, especially right now, a challenge. So, Donna, you have nothing else?
Nothing else.
Carl?
I'm good tonight, Paul, thank you.
Elaine?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, we'll go around the table. Mrs. Malone?
I just want to follow up on your comment about use of electronic means to pay your bills. It would be good if we could put that information out there. I think we have in the past, but maybe posting it on Front Porch Forum seems to get to a lot of households. Making a recommendation that folks think about that for paying their property taxes in May.
I will do that, Norma.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nelson?
I've got nothing this week.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White?
Just a thank you to Mr. White for letting me multitask and running this meeting.
Happy to do it. And Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start off with a good thing. The town is very good at recycling envelopes. I said this before, but this one is especially good because this envelope, I had my emergency management budget in it, turned it in on October 9th, and I'm getting it back today, fully recycled. It's amazing. I thought that was quite impressive. It's got my writing on it and everything.
The circle will be unbroken.
The circle is
What you need to do is you need to find something to recycle and put back in it to give back to Elaine, Jack.
The other thing is, we did talk, I think, about our budget presentation. Are we still going to try that, or have we decided not to?
I was thinking that you were gonna try it, yes?
So do we have any dates or anything lined up yet for that?
Nothing.
Okay, so that, we'd have to figure that out next month then, I guess.
Well, I guess what I was thinking is that we don't need to get together necessarily to do it,
Right.
that we could provide the information to the board members, and they can go on and just record it, and Elaine can retrieve it. And I don't know if Elaine needs to do anything with it, maybe just to get it to the CBTV studio. And we could make arrangements for you to come in here, Jack, to do your part.
Geez, I gotta do my own makeup.
Or you have to do your own makeup this year.
And
Yeah,
provide your own green screen.
Make sure you wear the right clothes and all that.
Yes, sir.
We have to pick Pelkey next week, or is that a week down the road, or where is that?
That can wait a little bit now because
Okay.
you would not be, well, now we don't have town meeting where you would normally award it. So maybe you wanna, you could pick it, I suppose, anytime, but just not announce it until you can have somebody here for a meeting.
Something to do it, yeah. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I just had one question. I guess it would be a question for Elaine. Where are we with getting payroll onto AccuFund? Are we still doing it the old-fashioned way, or have they gone to the time clock?
A lot of departments have been trialing with it, but we are not ready to make the jump yet.
Okay. What prompted me to think of it is I was noticing on one of the department heads' mileage reimbursement forms, weekly trips to pick up time cards, and it made me think, we should be getting to the point where we can do that electronically soon, I would hope.
It might have been paychecks.
No, I think it was
Drop off time cards and pick up paychecks, I think.
right. Yeah, but anyhow, I was just curious where we were at with progress, that's all. Okay, well, if there is no executive session and nothing further.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I heard a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it, and we are adjourned at 7:57. Thank you all.